Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. We're gonna make a really cute and very easy summer dress today, which is hopefully gonna turn out beautifully, just like the mock-up, which I just finished, and I was super happy to fix some issues that I had. So this is gonna be a very ruffled midi dress. Obviously the skirt can be shortened or lengthened to your liking. Just add or subtract the amount to the skirt panels or from the skirt panels, and then obviously also to the full amount, the whole fabric consumption, like the meterage that is in the sewing instructions and so on, obviously. But yeah, it could be a mini dress or a maxi dress as well if you want to. I bet it would be beautiful as a beach dress as well for like a really beautiful summer evening at the beach or something like that. You can make whatever you want out of it. I am going to make a beautiful spring dress kind of thing because it's getting warmer and I'm getting the, starting a new season kind of thing. I love spring, so I'm gonna make a spring dress in this beautiful lilac color right here, and I think it's gonna be amazing. So, as I said, this is a very beginner-friendly dress. We're just gonna ruffle a ton, not by machine, but actually with strings that we're gonna funnel through a tunnel that we attach to the dress. There won't be any zippers. It's just tightened with the straps and stuff like that. So very easy and suitable for beginners or other levels obviously as well. If you haven't already, you can order my book now or find it in stores. It is out since the 18th of March, which is last week if you're watching this while the video, when the video is live. And I am super happy with it. As you can see, there are the pattern pages in the book as well, and loads of explanations and stuff like this. So if you want to support me, go and check out my book. You can find it anywhere where you can get books. It's in German, but we're working on maybe getting it translated. So, hi editing me. I just wanted to hop on here and also tell you guys that you can now also purchase the fabrics that I am using in the book. It wasn't previously possible, but now we found a solution. I am collaborating with Christina from Bodice Studio, who kindly offered to, offer the fabrics for you guys. So she also carries the book, and you can see all of the material lists that you need for each project and check out with the fabric and the book at the same time if you want to. We have beautiful linen blends, we have rayon, we have amazing qualities. I really love the collection that we put together. We have 10 different fabrics with multiple colorways, so there should be something for everybody. Very springy, very summery because of the blends that we offer. So do check that out. Link is in the description down below. It's open for pre-order now, and she sells throughout all Europe. So thank you so much to Christina from Bodice Studio for making everything possible and offering you guys the option to also sew the pieces with the fabrics that I used, because I really love the fabrics. Without further ado, let's get started. We are going to start with the front waist piece and the back waist pieces, which attach right here at the seam. It's not the side seam. The side seam is where the notch is right here. Don't be confused. I just had an issue with the ruffles in my first mock-up, so I decided to not have any ruffles in the back panels and just move everything to the front. But I didn't want to have the ruffles start in the side seam because it kind of bulges out like that and it's not very flattering. So I moved that seam towards the front, and that just looks very nice. So we're going to put right sides together of these two pieces. We're going to put the stitching line together, which is why we're going to have these dog ears up here, and just stitch down and overlock the seam. Same to the other side. I'm going to iron my seam allowance towards the back waist, and I'm also going to add a top stitch just to fix it in place a tiny bit better. And I also want to have that top stitch as a decorative stitch. So 5 millimeters next to that seam, I am going to top stitch and fix the seam allowance in place. And same to here. Now, to be able to fit the bust portion together with our waist, you're gonna find that from this notch right here to the essentially side seam area, this distance here is smaller than this distance. This is because this right here like the bust area here is 1.5 times the length than the back portion here. So this technically is 100%, whereas this is 150% of the length. So to counteract that, we need to gather this small portion. So here until the notch that marks the seam, we need to gather this to fit the size of this. So for that, I'm just gonna put some gathering stitches, so 2 rows of gathering stitches into the seam allowance of my bust piece from the upper edge all the way down to that notch and back up. Same to the other side. And then I can put the 2 pieces together and gather this section here to fit this section. Okay, so the machine already gathered for me a tiny bit, which is nice. So before gathering this to size, I actually like to start by putting the pieces that, you know, fit together already together. So I'm going to start in the center front, match up the 2 notches here, then the second notch here in the bust area, and then finally matching up the stitching line or the seam with the notch here. And now I can match up the stitching line here as well. So right here is where they need to match up. And the in-between, I can now, by pulling on the bobbin thread, gather to the same size, which mine just happens to be already. And here I already gathered a tiny bit like that. And this is now also the same length. And with that done, I can now sew around the bust area and put the 2 pieces together. The seam allowance I like to iron away from the bust area for, you know, the prep work for our tunnel that we are going to add on top of that. And as you can see, since this bust area here is just 50% bigger than the back piece, it's actually not folding per se. It just, you know, bubbles up a bit, but it's not actually that you have any folds that you sewed into your seam there. And then the rest is, you know, it just fits together, same size. And then we have the same thing here. Again, no folds in the actual seam, just a little bit more volume in the bust area, which is nice. Okay, that's that. I'm not gonna bother taking out my gathering stitches here because I'm going to add some satin band over top of that. You can make yourself some bias binding that you can put on top of that. I wouldn't recommend adding too many layers though. Bias binding usually is folded towards the inside again, so it's technically 2 layers, and that just bulges up once you actually, you know, tighten everything. So I'd suggest you use something very thin, like a already on both sides finished piece of something. So I am just going to use the satin band, and I will be fine fitting this around the curve of the seam because it's not too curvy. Obviously, if you use anything, you know, if you want to attach it to anything more curvy than this, it's going to be an issue because usually, you know, it doesn't do that very nicely. But before we do any of that, we actually have to finish the upper edge right here, which I'm just going to do with a double folded hem. I double fold 5mm and top stitch right here all the way along the upper edge there and finish the neckline, because then we also need to attach 1 piece of tunneling, I guess, 2 centimeters below that. You're going to find the placements on your pattern piece. So let's finish the upper edge. Okay, everything now here is finished. And I want to also close the center back seam because we're going to have everything closed and only tighten with our, you know, tightening bands, our straps everywhere around the dress. So let's go ahead and close the center back seam as well and overlock it. We're going to iron the seam allowance now to one side, doesn't matter which one. And now with all of that done, we can draw in the lines for our satin band or whatever band for the tunnel that you want to use. As I said, I'm going to use the satin band right here, which is going to sit 2 centimeters below the upper edge. So I am going to draw in a line 2 centimeters below the edge all around so that I have something that I can orientate myself at, like that. And now I am going to cut this straight and melt the edges so that I have a clean edge. Not like this, I don't like that, like that. Which I can now place next to the center front. So I'm gonna find my center front. It's right here. And I am going to mark 2 centimeters next to it on each side. That's exactly where I'm going to start stitching on the tunnel. So I'm gonna leave here open, stitch all around, and then stop right here as well. So we're gonna have the tightening placement, I guess, in the front, which is super easy for, you know, putting the dress on in the end, which is important. So let's go ahead and do that. Once I reach about this point here, I'm going to cut off my band, melt it, and then, you know, go back the other way. Now we're gonna do the same thing to the underbust seam. So I'm going to start right where the tunnel of the neck tunnel stops and go around the bust area. So I'm gonna stop right here. You can cut this at an angle so that this is going to end nicely right in the seam here. But the important thing is that it lays over top of the neck tunnel and not underneath. That's why we have to do it in this order, like that. And I am going to stop right here on the other side. We are going to continue now with the skirt. The skirt is just 2 panels, so we're essentially just going to put right sides together on both the sides, close the selvage edges with each other. So the 2 panels both have selvage edges. We're just going to put right sides together and close it approximately at 2 centimeters, something like that. Depends on how thick your selvage edge is. Just make sure that the punctures, like the holes right here, and then also maybe if you have a border where the dye didn't go, it doesn't show on the front obviously, but other than that, just close it. You do not have to overlock this because this is already fixed, like this is finished. It's not gonna fray because it's a selvage edge. If you don't like the look, obviously you can overlock. That's your choice. I'm not going to because I really don't mind it, and I'd rather iron the seam allowance open than overlock and having to iron it to one side. So I'm just gonna close this into a big tube. And as I said, I'm going to iron this open. This just makes it easier for hemming the skirt as you don't have that much bulk on one spot. It's, you know, on both sides. And I just overall like this better than having an overlocked edge on the inside. But obviously, all preference. You can do whatever you find better, more beautiful, I guess. Really, it doesn't matter, it's on the inside. Okay, with that done, I'd like to get the hemming out of the way already because now nothing is gathered yet. So it's all just a straight piece of fabric, and I'm going to do the same thing that I did for the neckline. So I'm just going to fold it 5 millimeters twice and top stitch at the inner fold line. Okay, the hem is done. Looks nice. I also ironed it. And I also marked my front and center back seams. So I put the 2 seams, which I want to have on the sides and not in the front or back, together, and then just marked the spot in the center of that section, which is going to be either my front or my back. So now it's time to make the skirt shrink to the size of our waist. I want to use an elastic for the initial tunnel, or the whole tunnel, I guess. So I am simply going to draw in 2, I guess, or like 1 in my case, line. I have 1 centimeter seam allowance on my upper edge. Then I'm going to use a strong elastic band, which in my case is 2 centimeters wide. I want to add 0.5 centimeter ease into my tunnel, so I am going to have to measure downwards 1 plus 2.5 centimeters, which is going to be 3.5 centimeters. That is my break line for my tunnel. So if I draw in my line, and by the way, always using a heat erasable pencil. This one is by PRYM. They just came out with their new one, and I don't like that mismatched corner here, so I'm just gonna cut it down and pretend it was never there. So now I'm going to draw in that line at 3.5 centimeters, like that. And once I fold it right sides together, I can stitch at 2.5 centimeters from that break line, measured inwards. And once I unfold it, it's gonna look like this. I essentially have a tunnel where I can insert my elastic. Now for that, obviously, I need to leave a little bit of room open. So I'm just going to leave open a tiny bit in the center back. So right here, I'm just going to stitch until here and then leave 2 centimeters or something of a gap and insert my elastic and close it afterwards. That's the easiest method. So let's go ahead and do that. You can also iron that fold line in. That might not be the worst idea. Actually, I am going to do that as well. Okay, and now we can actually sew at 2.5 centimeters. This now gets ironed downwards. So we have something that's gonna look like this. And once that's done, we can top stitch everything right here at the fold line so that this doesn't move. We need to fix it down, and we can go all the way around. We don't need this hole because we have it in the top already. So let's go around this whole thing once again and secure the tunnel in place. Now you want to measure your waist, and you want to have it as tight as you want the dress to sit on your waist. So I want to have it pretty tightly. So I'm going to measure that and cut it off. So this is going to cinch in everything that's right here on the table. So this is going to be very much cinched in. And we're going to do that with some safety pins, or 1 safety pin, I guess. First of all, I'm going to secure the edges of my elastic on both ends because I don't want it to fray on me on the inside of my skirt. And then I'm going to secure that elastic onto my safety pin and start inserting it right where the opening is, which is right here. And I want to be very careful with not twisting the elastic while I'm inserting it. And then also, once I reach the point where it kind of moves underneath or inside, I want to fix my elastic in place with a pin so that it's not gonna disappear on me and everything is for nothing and I have to restart essentially. So now I'm going to be very careful like that, and I'm going to use a pin and secure that, and I'm going to use another pin and secure it again. And now I can go around without having to worry that the end is going to disappear inside the tunnel and, you know, push this through the whole thing. And you can already see how that's working out. In my mock-up, I also did the waistline with a string for, you know, tying it in the center front. And it worked fine as well. So you can do that as well with a string. But I felt like there was too many bow ties then on the complete piece. So I thought maybe it's just better to, you know, do one thing there and then another maybe at the skirt and just mix it up a bit, because why not? And I think this will look nice as well. Okay, half is done. Okay, I'm almost there. And now it's super important to know the orientation of your elastic. So I'm going to pull out the elastic a tiny bit and then put in some pins like so, and then just do a secure seam crisscross here and attach those two together. So it's now sewn together, and I can just simply do this, and it's gonna hide on the inside nicely. And what I'm doing now is essentially just kind of doing like very even folds and, you know, even it out a tiny bit, which is very nice. And that's the skirt. We can now, if I find it, close the, oh no, that's the sides here. Close this portion that we left open. Right here, just top stitch. And now it's time to put the bodice onto our skirt. So I'm gonna find the center back right here and pin it together. Same to the center front. And then obviously also the side seam. So remember, the side seam is not the seam here, but actually this seam right here, because the front will get gathered down to its final size. So I'm going to match that up with the selvage seam, and the same on the other side. This goes together with that notch. Okay, and then the in-between, I am just going to arrange, and essentially I'm just going to pull on it and sew it together that way, all around, like that. So that did the trick very nicely, cinches in the waist as it should. Now we have 3 things to do. We need to attach 5 centimeters, something like that, next to that bust seam where it ends into the 2 centimeters above the ruffle area. We need to add another strap on both sides. I'm just gonna use, I think 50 centimeters should be enough. Let's just not make it too short. Let's just do somewhat of 1 meter each. We can always cut it smaller, but not lengthen it. And I want to attach the strap, as I said, like a little bit next to it, but I'm going to do it double, like the attaching. I can see the stitching lines here, so I'm just gonna stitch onto the stitching lines below and above so that it's secure double the time, and then do the same thing on the other side. Okay, and the 2 last things is inserting the satin band into the other remaining tunnels. I just cut off 1.5 meters, something like that. It depends on how you want to actually wear the dress, because you can crisscross, you can do a neck holder, you can do all kinds of things with this dress, essentially how you want to wear it. It's possible to wear the dress a multitude of different ways. I'm just gonna grab a pin that fits in here, not a pin, a safety pin. This one should do. And just insert the trim into the tunnels, and then that's it. So I'm gonna start with the neck one in the center front. I'm just gonna work my way all the way around. And that's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed this very fun and easy and fast sew. I really like this dress, this design. I enjoy the mock-up as well. It's like made from a rayon fabric with a little bit of a print in like green and blue colors. Really like that as well. And if you haven't already, please go ahead and subscribe to my channel and ring the bell so you'll get notified every time that I post. I post probably from now on Mondays because I feel like it works better. So maybe I'm gonna change it up for the future. Leave a comment down below, that would help me out tremendously. You don't have to write much, an emoji is just enough. It just helps the algorithm push this video out to an audience that might not know of the channel's existence and who might be interested in topics and videos that I'm doing. So thank you so much for that. Get yourself a copy of my new book, which just got released. Check out your local bookstore for my book. As I said, it's in German, but we're working on translating and stuff like that. That would mean the world to me because it all counts on the sales now. I'm actually wearing the blouse Annie and my pants Dania, which I really love this combo. I made the blouse Annie in a linen fabric, and then the pants, I made them from another really nice fabric that I forgot what it's made of. I will also put a link in the description down below where you can find all of my fabrics that I used, and obviously also to the book. You will also find my social media in the description down below, so if you're interested in tips and tricks and hacks and, you know, my life generally, check out my social media, and especially my Instagram, as I post updates on my story the most often there. And lastly, check out my Etsy store. That is the most direct way to support me. You can also get the pattern for this dress there, as well as so many other patterns. And leave a 5-star review. That would help me out tremendously and push my store out to other interested individuals. Thank you so much to my channel members, and thanks for watching, and I'm gonna see you next Monday. Bye guys!